Carl here from Metal Wani, and today I have the privilege of hanging out with a gentleman who is not only a true living legend in music, but is also one of the coolest personalities you could have the good fortune of speaking with. It is none other than Mike Inez of the mighty Alice in Chains. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me today.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure.
Awesome, man. So let's get straight into it. You guys released your new album, Rainier Fog, not too long ago now, and it's a stunningly good record, man. Congratulations to you and the guys, first of all, I have to say.
Oh, yeah, it was just really kind of a special record to go back to Seattle and record. Was just amazing for us, you know.
Absolutely,
so it was a nice. It's really close to our hearts for sure.
And the record also closes out like a 5-year wait for fans, you know, for new music, and that kind of time, of course, creates, you know, some heightened excitement and anticipation for sure. So, as the record has been doing the rounds, how has the response, the initial response, been treating you guys so far now that it's finally out there?
It's been good. We've done a lot of touring even before the album came out. We've been sitting on it about a year because of we didn't have a record label, so we were working out the deal with the label. And the 5-year thing, it's kind of like misleading because you have an album comes out and then you're touring for 2 years after.
Sure.
And then you want to live a bit of life before you start writing the next one, so you're not writing songs about catering and missed flights all the time. You know? So then you start working on a record, and then by the time you record it, and then we negotiated another deal, so that's why it took, you know, the full 5 years, you know. But we've been jamming pretty consistently since the record came out, I think in August, and we've already hit, I think it's 22 countries so far, so we've been putting the time in. We did an initial States East Coast tour, then we did a lot of Europe, and we got to go to Israel for the first time and play, and then more States tours, and then as I'm talking to you here from California, I'm waiting for my flight in the morning at 6 a.m. to go fly to Mexico City to play a big festival down there this weekend, and then we start America again, and then South America with Judas Priest coming up. So we're in the thick of it. And I think by the end of this year, we'll hit probably 30. I think it's 30 countries total. So
amazing.
It's been a rush for sure.
Absolutely. Will any of us Irish folk have the good fortune of having you guys back here anytime?
Not yet. We looked at some of the. They're proposing next year's tour already. So we're trying to fit as many people as we can, and hopefully we'll get over there. I was telling you before we started the interview how I just love Dublin. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. My first passport stamp when I first joined the Ozzy Osbourne band in 1990 was Ireland. I lived in County Wicklow with Ozzy and the guys rehearsing to. We did 2 warm-up shows at the now gone McGonagall's, and it was just such a great time for me. You know, as a young man to be tripping around Dublin. You know, it's just such a great time.
Well, we look forward to having you back whenever we do. But you know, to get back into the record, man, when I first heard it, there were several songs that jumped out at me. Perhaps none more so than "Never Fade," which I still listen to religiously. Another one was Drone, because it was interesting to me to see the fans' reaction to it. It kind of brought back that little debate about, you know, you guys, it's like, oh, are they metal, are they grunge, are they doom? But I think even when you guys were, you know, on the front line of the grunge movement in the 90s, in truth, you've always been a myriad of different styles. Would you agree with this assessment, or do you feel, no, actually, I do consider us to be, you know, this specific style?
Yeah, it's funny because, like, I don't think you would talk to any one of the people in any of the bands like Soundgarden or Pearl Jam or Nirvana, and they'll never use that word grunge, really. You know?
That's fascinating.
It was kind of a marketing tag that kind of other people put on it, you know. And you know, it was interesting to watch. I came like Eddie is from San Diego. I'm from Los Angeles. Dave Grohl's from like Virginia, you know, so we had a kind of a strange view to watch it from kind of an outsider's in a way, you know. So we weren't playing those clubs early on, you know, like the other guys were, you know. So I mean, the camaraderie with all those bands is really amazing. They would be very supportive. I think the secret was that like all those bands had time to be a band and kind of percolate their styles before they got, you know, big record deals and all that. Soundgarden was a band for 10 years before they got a major label deal, I think, you know. And so, like, I never thought Soundgarden sounded like Alice in Chains, sounded like Pearl Jam, sounded like Nirvana. I think it was really just kind of this weird, like, confluence of energies, and they're up there in the isolated Pacific Northwest, just jamming and jamming in the rain, and that's what came out of it. You know, I mean, you couldn't have planned like that sort of like global movement. You know, especially you know those guys. So that kind of thing just kind of happens.
Of course.
And so I joined in 1990. I think it was January of '93, and I did the Dirt tour, and yeah, so to see the whole thing kind of blow up was just a mind blower. I was just really excited, you know, for myself, but really excited for just the whole city of Seattle to get put on the map in such a spectacular kind of way, you know.
Of course, man. And perhaps it's just me, but when I first heard Rainier Fog, I mean, of course it completes your now trilogy of records with William, but I felt, while certainly, you know, being its own entity respectively, that it did share some of the same DNA as Black Gives Way to Blue in terms of like a feel and a demeanour. Do you think that's fair to say, that there's something of a relationship between those two albums outside of its creators, obviously, but more of a sonic tie that binds the two almost a decade apart?
Yeah, it's well, this will be our third record. This one with Nick Raskulinecz. He was just such a big part of it, and he's such a positive influence in the studio, you know. So with the first two records, well, the first one, Black Gives Way to Blue, was kind of like a, you know, we didn't know what to expect, and if people were gonna accept us again, and you know, we had a full world tour planned at that point, and you know, we were just so we were just kind of saying goodbye to Layne in a way, and kind of discovering where we were on the Black Gives Way to Blue record. And then the second record we did with William was just a pummelling, just big sounding pummelling tones, you know. So on this record we kind of stripped it back a little bit, and we recorded it a little bit different way up in Seattle, you know. I thought it was a more organic kind of feel of an album, you know. But the way we work with Nick Raskulinecz is so natural at this point. Like, I'll play something on bass, and okay, I'm gonna rock you this time, Nick. And then I play something on bass, and I'll look at him, and in one look, he could tell me if I did good or not. You know,
that's what you want.
It's like half the time you don't even have to, you know, talk to be on the same page. You know, it's just such a blessing. And he's a bass player himself too. So out of all the producers I've ever done records with, Nick's my favorite to track bass with. It's just so fun. You get in there, and all right, plug that bass into that amp. Okay, and plug this bass into that amp, and you know, we're just trying different things all the time. And you know, at this point, he knows what the band's supposed to sound like. And then I thought another like big ingredient on Rainier Fog was the addition of Joe Barresi mixed it, and instead of Randy Staub. And Joe has done like Tool, he's done like Queens of the Stone Age, a million records, you know, and he's just a blessing to come across Joe, and this is our first time working with Joe, and he's just such a cool guy and really open to, you know, ideas, and he really wants to talk about, you know, your tracks and what you expect out of them. A lot of these mixer guys just say, okay, band guys, get out of the room, I'm going to mix your album, you know. Joe was like, hey, all you guys get in here, what do you think of this? I'm going to try something crazy right here, what do you think? And, you know, he was really open to yes and no answers for those questions, you know.
Of course, man, and like the record sounds great, and you definitely get that organic feel of it. And obviously, you guys did, you know, so much of the work on the record in Seattle and returning to Studio X and so on. Is there something different, like whether it be an energy, a sense of home, history, familiarity, or whatever it may be? Does something else happen for you guys when you work on a record in Seattle or within the walls of a space like Studio X?
It was weird, and it's sad to report that Studio X is now closed, so they're moving locations now. Somebody's going to make a big skyscraper on that location.
No.
You know, I mean, that is just such a historic place. I mean, going back to even before Heart owned it, you know, they did some of their biggest songs in that room, like Barracuda, and you know, but before that, even Steve Miller, Fly Like an Eagle. Then you go to the next generation, it's Pearl Jam Versus and Alice in Chains Dog record, and you know, some Nirvana stuff. It was just like, it's such a piece of hallowed ground for us. So we're very sad that we're the last true rock band to go in and record it, you know, there. But it was really nice to, when I was flying from LA to go up there with Jerry, I had a moment of like anxiety. I was like, wow, this is going to be a really intense thing to go back and, you know, in the belly of the beast, and you know, we don't live those lifestyles anymore, and we've grown up, and I thought I was going to have a lot of like ghost, you know, when I when I walked in the studio, and surprisingly, I walked in and learned a lot about myself. I just walked in, and I noticed that once we plug our guitars into an amp and just start playing together, everything kind of works out, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was working myself up, you know, for a non-existent thing that never happened, you know. It was really nice. And then, of course, now Seattle doesn't look like Seattle of 1993.
Sure.
You know, it's a lot of Amazon people. I have an apartment up there right next to the Amazon building, so I'd walk to the studio every day. And it was just nice to see Mount Rainier in the distance and breathe that air, and you know, go get fresh coffee on the waterfront and walk to work was just such a great time.
Absolutely.
You know, it was a really special summer for us.
You know, as someone who was an architect of a style, I'm excited to get your thoughts on a conversation I've had with, you know, artists that never fails to produce a variance of interesting opinions. You know, while not all of them have, many great artists such as yourself that I've had the pleasure of talking with have shared the opinion that there is, you know, that there's a notable kind of lack of, say, forward-thinking musicians in our contemporary music culture, that musicians are often quicker to imitate as opposed to innovate. But others feel that this isn't the case, that there is an oversaturation of music available to us and these musicians are just buried within it. So I'm curious as to whether you feel that, no, these musicians are very much out there, or would you agree that there is kind of a state of retromania and that contemporary music culture sort of has an addiction to its own past?
Yeah, we didn't. With this album, it was interesting. We weren't looking forward or back. You know, we were just kind of in the moment, in a cool studio room, and just really enjoying each other's company. And you know, that I think we attribute to just our family vibe, the way we run the band. You know, we're like brothers at this point. I've been in 25 years, and Sean and Jerry have been jamming probably, you know, 30, maybe 30 years, 31 years or something. You know, so the bones of our band is already built. You know, so with us, it's like a Christmas tree. Every time we go into a studio, it's like we're dressing up the Christmas tree, and for that season, you know. And it was just such a kind of easy and hard. There's no such thing as an easy record,
right?
You know, so for us, it was just a question of staying in the moment and really just trying to do our best. And I think it really, you know, to toot our own horn, I think we got a good representation of capturing those moments in the studio this time. You know, like you brought up Never Fade and Drone, and God, I just love Drone. Like Chris DeGarmo from Queensryche just happened to drop by the studio for lunch one day, and Jerry put a 12-string guitar in his hand, and next thing you know, he's out there with headphones jamming. And you know, we had the Soundgarden guys coming by, and just different folks in Seattle. It was just really a you know, each day brought a new surprise, and it was really pleasant for us. So we weren't really thinking of the future too much, or thinking of the past too much. You know, it was just really, I was really proud of us to stay in those moments, you know, and recognize them when they're happening.
Absolutely. I suppose in general, do you feel that there's, you know, there's new music, there's bands doing new things out there, or do you feel like it's been a while since you've heard something you've kind of gone, I haven't heard that before?
I think there's a lot of good stuff happening. The big studios are kind of going away now, which is a shame, because now if anybody with a couple of grand could make a record at their house now, you know, on a Pro Tools record, Pro Tools rig, and I think that like there's bad and good with that, you know.
Right.
It's easy for guys to just cut and paste stuff and okay, I got the verse, let me clone the verses. Okay, we got all 3-4 verses now, you know, and then, okay, let's work on the B section. I think that kind of songwriting, it's a different style than the way we do it. We just kind of go in and, you know, make a bunch of racket, and, and somebody records it, and then we mix it, and it's, you know, usually pretty good, you know.
Of course, man. Yeah, oh, absolutely.
We're old school guys. You know, we still like jamming.
You cannot beat old school. I recently had the pleasure of sitting down, well, with a few musicians, but most recently with Rachel Bolan of Skid Row. And as we got into this conversation, you know, with regards, you know, a culture kind of having an addiction to its past, eventually we found ourselves applying the same thinking to and questions to lineup changes. And you spoke earlier on about, you know, when Alice in Chains kind of, you know, came back with William. We were wondering if people genuinely find it hard to move on, or do they just not want to, or is it a mixture of both? So, as someone who has certainly been in this position, in your experience or otherwise, what are your thoughts on how fans generally react to change within their favourite bands? Do you think that it's just hard for them to move on, or do you think that maybe they just don't want to, or is it a mixture? What do you think, Mike?
I think think it just comes down to the music. If the music's good, people are going to dig it. And of course, you got your, you know, Layne Staley purists that want to, they just want to hear those records. And the cool thing about that is those records are out there, and you can always have those records. You know, those are that's the special thing about music. I mean, it's certain songs are timeless, you know, and mean certain things to certain people. You know, I mean, I always say that when we finally release a record, it's like not our record anymore. It's your record. It turns into your life story too, and the soundtrack of your day, driving around in your car, listening at work or at home, or you know, people come up to us. So I made my baby the Jar of Flies record, or you know, it's like, I don't know how to react when people say stuff like that. You know, in fact, last night me and my wife were coming home, and I stopped at a 7-Eleven just to get. I'm coughing. I have a little bit of a cold and a sore throat, so I stopped by to get a cold drink on the way home. And I walked in, and there was an old guy buying a 30-pack of beer, and he had his son with him, and his son had a Rainier Fog shirt that we only sold at our concert. So he came to the Hollywood Palladium show that we played about maybe 2 months ago here in LA, and so he recognized me, and it was weird. So I'm talking to two generations of Alice in Chains fans, you know, just in line at the 7-Eleven, and they were just super positive, and it was just, you know, it was. I told my wife this. It was a good reminder for me that it's not just us in the studio; it's everybody else too, you know, and it really kind of affirmed that our life's work is actually, you know, reaching some people, and you know, so. You know, we just want to reach people and have a shared experience live. I think that's why live music will never go away, you know?
Absolutely.
I mean, and that certain concert that those two guys came to we had a really good night in LA. It was fun, and so we were nice and relaxed playing. It was a really fun night for us, and then it's nice to hear that it was a good night for other people too.
Of course.
And that translates to the record too. So, you know, at this point, Rainier Fog's yours as much as mine now at this point, you know?
I think that's a really cool way of looking at it. And, you know, finally, Mike, I won't keep you too much longer. You said there about your life's work, and I mean, your life's work is, you know, just to name a few things, it's a generational spanning career, as you said. You know, you're at the forefront of a genre when it exploded, and you're considered a music legend, and are still out there doing it today with great results, man. So someday, hopefully many, many moons from now, when you look back at it all, what do you hope your life's work or your legacy will look like?
Oh God, yeah, I'm not sure. I kept journals from, you know, pretty much my whole life, but especially with my music career. So every once in a while, I'll pull a notebook off the shelf and I'll look at a day, and I go, oh, I remember that, and you know, that was cool. And then I kind of get anxiety about it. It's like, okay, I'm still not done with this story yet. You know?
Of course, yeah.
Most of our time is just spent like I told you, to tomorrow morning I have to wake up at 5 a.m. and go down to LAX and fly to Mexico City to go play this big festival this weekend, and then fly back, and then we do a video, and then we're up on an American leg, and then we're down to South America, and then before we know it, it's Thanksgiving. And so mainly we're just living it like day to day. So, you know, at this point, I think it's the wrong time in my life to look back on everything yet. You know, we're still living it.
Of course, man.
It'll make a nice book someday.
I look forward to reading it. Well, Mike, listen, man, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Congratulations on the record. It's fantastic. And
thank you so much.
Best of luck with the rest of the year, and I hope to catch you here in Dublin real soon, my friend.
Okay, yeah, come find me. We'll hang out.
Definitely, mate, definitely. Listen, have a safe flight, and I shall chat to you again soon, my friend.
Okay, thank you so much.